Good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted today to be hosting Cindy and Bob Kessler, who have had their own studio for over 40 years. Cindy started out in ceramics, but then she soon fell in love with art glass and switched over. She added mosaics to her realm of work in 1986 when she was commissioned to do a wall piece for the University of Cincinnati. Cindy is the principal designer and president of Kessler Studios, and Bob, her husband, his primary function was to manage the fabrication of Cindy's designs, and he also handled the business end of things. And so this presentation today is a retrospective of over 40 years of work. They started out working in the residential market and over the years transitioned to large liturgical and public art installations throughout the Midwestern United States. So Bob will be doing the presentation. Cindy will be answering questions afterwards. And if everyone could mute themselves right now, that would be great.
Oh, okay.
Take it away, Bob.
Okay, so first I have to do the share screen thing. So let me see. And hopefully you see it now. Correct?
Good, Bob.
Okay. I want to get rid of all the little pictures. Oh, there they go. Okay. I was seeing everyone's face over my text of what I was supposed to read. So that didn't work. Okay. So anyway, I'm Bob Kessler. My wife, Cindy Kessler, and I started our stained glass business in 1980, shortly after we were married. Cindy was working at a frame shop and wanted to find something to do with all the leftover clear glass cutoffs that she had from making frames for paintings and posters and whatnot. She started building leaded glass panels, and I soon joined in. We began with pretty conventional windows like flowers and landscapes, learning the craft. We formed Kessler Studios at some point to concentrate more on commission pieces than trying to do art shows or galleries. Cindy, as they've already mentioned, is the artist, and I'm the project manager. We've been working together for 43 years as a spousal team. She would tell you that she's the boss, but of course, I think I am. We live and work near Cincinnati, Ohio, a small river town called Loveland, population 14,000. Our studio from 2008 until we retired was in an old school building that was converted into artist studios. We were one of 25 artists in the building, but the only ones doing art glass as a full-time profession. One advantage to that studio was having large wall spaces. Our work tables could also be moved around to create big working surfaces. Before I go to the beginning of our career, I'd like to start with a couple of our final commissions. Cindy describes her style as abstract interpretive. She seeks to bring concepts and define our client space into the artwork. The results are designs which are integrated into the artwork, hopefully visually stunning on their own, but also can have a deeper understanding if you look at it and learn about the incorporated ideas. For instance, this 4-foot by 12-foot piece is entitled Elijah in the Still Small Voice. It depicts the events of 1 Kings chapter 19, 9 through 18, where Elijah is waiting in a cave to hear the voice of God. He's expecting a thunderous experience, but instead, God speaks to him in a gentle whisper. The browns and greens represent the earth. The orange and pinks and purples are the cave, and the blue, the sky. God's still small voice are the clear wisps. Cindy really loves working with opal and opak glass. That's a type of glass that Lamberts in Germany makes. It has a thin layer of white on the back, and it really accentuates the colors. It makes them work really well, either in cloudy or even sunny conditions. It all has kind of an interest. You can see it very well. You can see here she's using a light table to figure out where the pieces of glass would go to get the most out of the shading of the colors. And then we had a light table and also windows that she would also lay out the glass to make sure everything flowed well the way she wanted it to. We also used heavily clear textured glass a lot. And in this case, we used this figure C glass, it's called. And it was just to give a sparkle to the overall design. In that same church, we also did a sculptural piece, which I had a really hard time taking a picture of.
Okay, never mind. I just won't be able to talk to.
I think you can.
Okay, shall I continue? The other corner of the sanctuary, there's a depiction of the burning.
I think you're going to appear there.
Okay.
But I'm not,
Mute. Anyway, it was a burning bush image, and in the corner there was a sandblasted bush of leaves and whatnot, and they want us to do the flames. And I didn't get a really good picture of this for a number of reasons, but basically what we did is we laminated colored glass onto a clear backing glass and then hung it with cables and to give the flame effect that you see going up. This is another later commission. This was a two-part work. It was a memorial to a young parishioner who died unexpectedly. You can see Cindy's colored pencil drawing it right. That's what we generally show clients. Sometimes we make maquettes up too, depending on the size of the job. Design is intended to lift the human spirit with its vibrant coloration, graceful line work, and joyful character. It represents a community spirit of worship and a promise of eternal life. The stars, quote unquote, are clear glass jewels that provide an accent of the sparkling sunlight and indicate souls in heaven. Here she is enlarging that drawing to full scale. Cindy would spend a lot of time to make sure that the lines, that she had all these flowing lines, when they go through metal frames, sometimes the lines would not appear to flow correctly. So she spent a lot of time fixing that visual impression that you would get by looking at it. But now let's go back in time, back to 1983, in the beginning of Kessler Studios, and a two-car garage that we bought in the town of Loveland. We purchased this ramshackle dwelling, hoping to use the two-car garage for our glass studio. We were making small windows for sale at a local stained glass shop, but we wanted to start our own business. Cindy was 28. I was 25. We've been married 3 years. She was working, as I said, at the picture framing shop. And I was a freelance film and video production person. Cindy had been a ceramics major, and I had been a film major. The building apparently was built to be a barn for local farmers who stored milk inside the all concrete and block structure. Sometime in the 1970s, some guy who we bought it from put a roof on it and tried to add rooms on the inside. We were young and ambitious and ready to tackle this lemon of a house. What we didn't know was it was going to be a major rebuild, and it would take us over 10 years to finish. This is what the inside looked like. It resembled an industrial wasteland, and the walls were made out of concrete block. The floors and the ceilings were all poured concrete. Here we are reconfiguring the pass-throughs to rearrange the rooms inside the structure. The roof of the thing was apparently not built well either, so we had to rebuild the roof from the inside. And this was our studio. It was the only space that we actually got finished. I should say the space we finished first. And we worked out of here from 83 until 2008. We had 4 4-foot by 8-foot work tables, some glass bins on the right, which are out of frame, and a little drawing table. And the only heat was a wood stove in the back. We slept on the floor in front of the glass racks because we were renovating the house inside and there was no place to sleep inside. But eventually we finished the house. This is what it looks like now. So it's a lot nicer than what we started with. And this is what the inside looks like now. So you can see we made a lot of progress from the concrete block and floor states. And a quick aside, the window in the back there is an old antique window that we traded an architect for. And it's in a light box in our living room. But as Deborah said, we started out with residential work, doing a lot of flowers and little leaf designs. But eventually Cindy started exploring kind of contemporary work. And you can see that she also started really getting interested in whites and clears as kind of an accent by itself. And then finally, we started to branch out into larger liturgical commissions. A local friar took a chance on a young couple of artists and hired us for this chapel space in Cincinnati. It's based on the Canticle of the Sun by St. Francis, and these windows depict the sun, earth, wind, and rain. The wide lines represent the cords worn around the friar's waist. The heavily textured background glass actually hides an unsightly alley beyond. The blue is water, the yellows and reds, the sun, the clear centers are the moon. At this point, we were using a glass called Blanco, if anybody knows what Blanco glass is, which is a nice colored glass, but not a very good glass to work with from a production building point of view. We also were hired to do our first large mosaic. This is for a place in Wheeling, a hospital in Wheeling. We hired Franz Meyer of Munich to build it for us because we knew nothing about mosaics at that point. The piece is 7 foot by 35 feet, and it depicts various healthy things that you can do inside this facility. It was basically like a YMCA type complex attached to a hospital. In mosaics, in case you don't know, each piece of glass where stone is first glued to a backing mesh, which is later adhered to a masonry with thinset. We traveled to Munich to supervise the fabrication. After a couple of weeks of work, they suggested we travel around Germany and come back later to check on progress. We were big fans of the post-World War II German glass movement, particularly the work of Johannes Schreider. So we used this book and a map that was inside to go and look at many of his commissions in person. We literally took dozens of pictures and went to probably 2 or 3 dozen sites. It was great to see them in person. That trip is where Cindy and I were first introduced to opal and opak glasses from Lamberts, and we fell in love with their intense coloration. We also did another mosaic. This time we used Steve Mioto of Mioto Mosaics in New Jersey to build it for us. This was our first Percent for Art project, which, if you don't know what Percent for Art is where there's like a government project and a certain percentage of the overall budget is allocated for artwork. And it's a competitive thing. You submit work and they decide on you, and you then submit a design among finalists, and then they pick someone. And this wasn't like a design style that we were really that interested in doing in the long run, but it was a learning process to figure out how to Percent for Art's work, how do you work with different tradespeople and things like that. And it depicts the different functions of the Department of Agriculture for the state of Ohio that they regulate and supervise. Let's see, we finally actually moved into a large liturgical space. Cindy really hadn't yet found her unique voice in glass design, but this project helped us to understand how to build large windows and manage our production, interacting professionally with the various trades working on a job site. Design is of the sun reflecting on the water, a reference to John the Baptist, water being the life-giving force, nurturing the plants around it, just as Jesus nurtures the faithful. A local high school also wanted something from us, and it was a little different situation. They wanted a completely opaque experience where the kids would come into this space and they would not be distracted by anything outside, but they wanted to still create an atmosphere of respectful celebration and quiet meditation. They didn't want any recognizable images, so the designs are there really just for beauty of line and color, and to kind of give them to interact internally about them, the experience they're seeing. We're still using at this point mostly domestic opalescent glasses, but that was about to change. Although we knew Lamberts had a glass type that really created that intense coloration, the opals and opaks, it was this project that we could finally justify ordering cases of it directly from the factory. The U.S. distributor for Lamberts only stocked a small palette of colors in the opals and opaks, so when we were awarded this commission, we were able to send Cindy to the factory in Germany to hand select what we needed. This started a 23-year-long collaboration, as Cindy likes to call it, with that fine German company, Lamberts. We built 2 monumental windows on the north and south sides, each 14 by 35 feet, as well as 2 9.5 by 9.5 foot clear story windows on the east and west sides. The college has its roots in the Methodist faith, so we worked off their logo of the cross and flame. This clear story window was called the Great Commission. And then this shot gives a nice view of the rich colors and what they look like up close. But my ladder setup there probably isn't OSHA approved, but I'm actually staying on a platform. This window is actually behind an organ in the building. It's backlit for people to watch outside. For this project, we did 2 major works. This flame-like representation sits behind the altar and also faces the street, announcing the worshipful presence inside. Off to the right of the sanctuary is the Eucharistic Chapel. This chapel is 5.5, the window I should say, is 5.5 feet tall on a 22-foot curved wall, and depicts the veil of the sacred. The tabernacle is just inside. You can just barely see it. It's sort of obscured as if by clouds. It lends a sense of mystery, the idea of trusting God without fully understanding him. The glasses are all clear textures and whites. The colors that you actually see beyond are actually old stained glass windows on an exterior wall. The grid in the window represents the structure that the church provides the faithful. In 2002, we were selected to design and install a variety of windows for this quote unquote new Catholic church on the south side of Grant Park in Chicago. It's actually called Old St. Mary's, but it's been moved a couple times. The very contemporary space was a great fit for Cindy's evolving design style. This day chapel window is entitled Rising Sun and represents a portion of the 113th Psalm, from the rising of the sun to the setting thereof. May the name of the Lord be praised. We contracted with the Derrick's company in Germany to fabricate this window. It utilizes acid etching and painting techniques that we could not do ourselves. This ambulatory window, which faces west, is the counterpoint to the day chapel piece, The Rising Sun. It's also located at the opposite end of the sanctuary. It's titled Setting Sun. The horizontal flow depicts Christ's somber journey through the nearby stations of the cross. The center shape is both the sunset and broken sun/death of Jesus, but the yellow shape points towards a resurrection window, which is behind the altar. This resurrection window, the main sanctuary, we titled Creation and Ascension. It depicts Mary holding her newborn son. She faces his crucifixion. The line work of the design flows towards and through that ultimate sacrifice and then upward, his resurrection. We use opak glasses in the blues along the very top portions to eliminate a bad solar glare in the parishioner's eyes. These are the presentation drawings that Cindy did for that client. Again, working mostly with colored pencils. Or sometimes she worked with Mylar and did little paintings on the plastic to kind of give a more glass-like look to it. This is the job right up the street that she was talking about. This is an 8-foot octagonal window. It's one of many we built in this Catholic church. And they were looking for depictions of wind and spirit, the fire, divine love, God's spirit within us, that kind of thing. And also the church felt a really deep connection to nature nearby the adjacent woods. And as we talked to them about it, they kind of really found that there was interesting parallels in religious life and the varied quality of trees. Thus, trees became kind of a theme for the 6 rectangular sanctuary windows. Each window represents the benefits of religious life and parallels to trees, their qualities and uses for humans. The entry doors to the sanctuary mimic the design work inside, kind of preparing the worshipers for what's to come. University Place is a retirement community next to Purdue University in Indiana. They catered to well-educated clientele and wanted this great room to serve as both a conference room and a space for religious services. Oops, wrong direction. The panel beyond the altar has kind of a joyful but non-denominational feel about it, and they use it to set an altar in front of. And off to the side, keeping in with the facility's ties to academia, is the great room window. That window equates the education with the planting of a seed of knowledge and ripple effects that it creates, the evolution of shared thought, a uniquely human quality that allows for great sophistication of thought and unimaginable potential. The facility also had this meditation room, which is intended to welcome people of all faiths while specifically acknowledging the 3 monotheistic faiths, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim. The repetitive grid design is reminiscent of the ornamentation found in mosques. The Jewish inscription of the door nods to Jewish faith, and the shapes in the side panels are Christian symbols of water, fire, and light. Everything meets in the center, a kind of call to worship that opens and invites entry. This project was a bit of a design challenge. The high clear story windows were a glare problem for this very contemporary church with a large oval sanctuary. No matter where the sun was, there was blinding light. They also wanted no specific design concept, instead asking for a flow of light and color from one section to the next. The artwork is meant to be a bridge to the spiritual experience to inspire the viewer to seek his own personal interpretation. We use various types of glass manipulation for that project, acid etching, painting, fusing. We also use dynamic Lamberts streakies along with our mainstays of opals and opaks. There were 38 panels. Each one was 22 inches tall and varied from 4 to 9 foot long each. The chapel of this large hospital complex is intended to be a womb-like sanctuary, an environment of calm in what is often a stressful time of life. The panel on the left represents wind, or ruah, the breath of God. The far right depicts the concept of water, cleansing, purification of body and spirit. The transition windows between them lead towards the center window, which is called fire. The fire window speaks of the Holy Spirit moving in and through the viewer. Sparks rise from the fire, suggestive prayers rising towards heaven. The fire also symbolizes the warmth of hearth and home, of comfort and support of family and friends in time of need. That was a heck of a job to build all those little lines. This is a detailed shot of the water window. Occasionally, we got to do these percent for art jobs, which was a nice change for us because it was really, doing liturgical work has its own niche, but it's nice to do something really out of the ordinary for us. And this was one of those jobs. This percent for art project was for a small college in Nebraska. It's titled The Journey. The 3 hanging panels reflect life transitions, personal challenges, and self-discovery. The blue forms represent the diverse milestones the collegiate experience has on people. The golden forms being the students moving from one milestone to the next. The whimsical lines that sweep through the design, both the lead lines and the rose-colored wisps, represent the flurry of activity inherent in the college experience, from the rigors of coursework to delightful social opportunities. The self-supported frames hang off cables well away from the walls, allowing the stained glass panels to be properly illuminated by the outside windows. Cindy again used opal and opak glasses as well as streakies from Lamberts, and also had some dense whites and bevels in the grid pattern. Various lead lines also served as a graphic line element in the design. Another part of the library, we built 5 windows depicting historical uses of that building. The window on the left references the space when it was used as a chapel. The purple shapes suggest an open book, the holy book. The orange flame-like shapes are the ideas and words flowing out. The pink glass with its open egg seed motif speaks of spiritual renewal and a new life. The right-hand panel depicts when the building was a gymnasium, a basketball, the pink form, goes through the net, the orange shape, and the green square behind is the backboard. And the blue is the arm of the player leaping up to place the shot. Now, nobody would get these necessarily by looking at them, so we actually had little plaques made, for each one. But really, the idea is just to have also a pleasant design as well as, something more if you looked into it. And this was another one we had done. This was called roller rink, where the brown represent the floorboards, the sweeping red and lead lines are the people skating around, and then the spots and blue lights are like the mirrored balls that you would see in those kind of environments. That project was the last one we built before moving into our new studio space. We just couldn't build these larger commissions in our home garage studio. In fact, we temporarily rented a vacant storefront in the town to give Cindy someplace to look at the various sheets of glass that we were using on that job. Eventually, our new studio would allow her to look at 16 sheets of Lamberts glass in the windows at one glance. This is our studio space that we moved into, I should say. On the left door is going into the fabrication area, and the right 2 doors are like storage and a mudroom. So we basically had our tables and a nice working space, a big bins for glass, and then we had lots of storage and whatnot. It was a nice area because there were also a lot of other artists in the building, so we kind of had a more social environment. We weren't so isolated anymore in our house. Our first project in that studio space was this 5.5 foot by 15.5 foot wall mounted mosaic. It was another percent for our commission. This was McGuffey Hall, is named after William Holmes McGuffey, a teacher and author of McGuffey Reader, which was a very popular reader primer used in the 19th and 20th centuries. The blues represent an open book. The green and orange forms suggest a stone path, ideas within the book, leading the reader from one to the next. The black wisps are the joy of abandoning yourself to a good read, allowing the words to pull you deeper into the story. We use many different kinds of tessera or materials for this project. Here you see the traditional glass smalti, which were small rectangular shapes we sourced from a manufacturer in Venice, Italy. We also use granite and marble pieces on that. And Cindy had to get up and close and personal and get just the right color phasing on those orange sections. We assembled a mosaic like a giant puzzle, building at the top of backing of plywood that was bolted to the wall. That thing is never coming down. I feel sorry if they ever have to tear that building down. Our first big project in the new studio space was this commission for a Chicago 54-story skyscraper retirement building near the famous water tower area of Chicago. The chapel was located on the 19th floor, and the window is 18 feet tall by 89 feet long. The Franciscan Sisters of Chicago wanted us to depict the life of St. Clare and her journey of faith alongside St. Francis. It's titled Clare and Francis. Clara's spiritual journey moves from left to right. The purple shape represent the seeds of her faith, nurtured by God, the blue form. The gold sweeps are the teachings of Francis, which pulls her towards the climactic element of the story. The spiritual dinner in the woods, which legend says created a powerful glow that nearby villagers thought was a great fire. The fellowship of those two people, passionately devoted to God, create a moment of completeness, a sense of coming home, thus the circular motif. The color blue, a symbol of nurturing, reappears in the fire portion of the design. Just as Francis and Clare renewed their meal in the forest, the blue reminds us that our own spirit is renewed every time we come to the table. Cindy used our now spacious wall area to enlarge the drawings. for that job. And we were able to lay out many more windows on our tables than we used to be able to do. And we also had plenty of room for her to lay out the glass up in windows or on the light box in order for her to see the colors that she was building. And here's one of our workers assembling a Cindy design, which is not easy to do with all those curved lead lines, especially since she likes wide lead a lot. It takes a lot of effort to make those curves graceful. In addition to Claire and Francis, we built other windows in 3 other locations in that building. This is one of them we call We Today. It's passed by those approaching the chapel. The wide gesture lines within the artwork represent life paths. It's unique as individuals. It's unique as each individual walking them. The lines create an upward movement within the artwork, suggesting the rising of the spirit heavenward, a coming closer to higher spiritual existence that one soul finds, that fills one's soul so completely. These lines catch the viewer's attention. They encourage us to evaluate our own lives and to see if we are flowing in harmony with the full potential that Claire and Francis had shown to be possible. This 21 by 25 foot window, the Salvation Army in Ashland, Ohio, was a result of a big donation by Joan Kroc of McDonald's fame to the Salvation Army in all of the United States. Basically, she asked that they would serve lesser used communities would have the benefit of new facilities, and she especially wanted artwork to be involved in any new facility that was built. So some places would build theaters. In this location, they wanted to build a large chapel. So the cross here is the focal point of that chapel, with its sunrise colors suggesting hope and promise of a new day. The white glass cradles the cross, lifting it up for all to behold. Small glass jewels are embedded in the lead lines, rise vertically to symbolize prayer sweeping towards heaven. It's made entirely of opak glasses because it's a south-facing window, and we use Sussman frames, if you know what those are. That's a special double-channel frame that allows stained glass to be put in easily and worked on easily later. We also did the entryway into that chapel space, which is 9 foot by 22 foot. And we call that Catch the Spirit. It indicates the joyful promise of fulfilling religious experience that awaits those who enter. Here's some detailed views of the various glasses we use in these panels, relying on clear textures and various whites with only a hint of brown, because it's basically an interior window and there's no direct light on it. Here's another present for our project. This was for the city of Largo down in Florida. It's titled The Woodlands. The design plays off the vertical shapes the architect incorporated to the building facade, which are tree trunks with glass leaves, quote unquote, above the windows. The mosaic is a playful form that kind of completes the woodland scene by providing the understory vegetation, small trees and shrubs and flowers. Design reaches out to the citizens of Largos with a spirit of joy, vitality, and energy inherent to a community center. Interesting thing about this project was how they built these walls. This is called tilt-up construction, where the walls were literally poured on the horizontal plane down flat and then raised up by cranes into the vertical shape. What that allowed us to do is give them plywood shapes for our mosaic, which they embedded into the concrete when it was poured, and then they lifted up with their basically holes created for our mosaic to go into. So when the installer and I showed up, we basically had the mosaics built on mesh, and we just put thin set inside those recesses and filled them in, and it was basically flush with the existing facade. Another present for our art job that we did allowed Cindy to take a really different direction into sculptural work. This one's a 14-foot diameter piece, 9.5 foot tall, and it's entitled Blossoming. It's inside a 2-story lobby area in a college building. The sculpture is designed to beautify the architectural spirit, uplift the human spirit, and also serve as an educational commentary. It uses the transformation of a seed into a richly nuanced flower to speak of the educational process. Seeds are represented by the small hanging forms in the center of the artwork, with 6 large flower petals unfolding exuberantly above them. The movement is symbolic of students coming to the University of Toledo, rising upwards, so to speak, through their academic programs, nurtured by the educational experience. Each student's potential metaphorically blossoms into the flower above. Lamberts produced custom sheet glass for us for this job, kind of a shading from blue to yellow. An ironworker created the steel armatures that serve 2 functions as a design element with their graceful curves, and as a structural one that supports the glass petals. the cables are attached to the steelwork and they go up to a structure up in the ceiling that holds the whole thing up. I took pictures of dozens of sheets of glass that we received from Lamberts, and Cindy used those photos to determine what sheets would go exactly where in the 6 petals. Since the sheet of glass was not nearly large enough, she had to meld several together, working to make the seam lines invisible, as if we were working with one giant piece of glass. The art glass we glued onto the backing of clear tempered glass. The backing material was covered with water jets, and the holes were drilled to support of the armatures. We used an optically clear silicone adhesive designed for laminating stained glass and embedded our colored glass on top of the clear one, pushing out any trapped bubbles along the way. And the whole thing's taped together with Scotch tape while it cures overnight. The holes in the metal armatures were used, as I said, both to hold the glass and also to attach support cables too. And we also had to create this support wheel, which we attached to the ceiling that the whole sculpture hangs from. That was its own engineering feat, which is a whole different story. But it had to hold up all those petals of glass, so that each petal has 2 attachment points up and top. This is Cindy checking out the design when it's all done. It's hanging in our studio. We were doing our last cleaning and getting it ready to move. We couldn't set the things down anywhere because the glass we didn't feel comfortable letting the glass support itself. So every time we had moved it around, we had to hold on to it up in the air and hang it. But the installation turned out to be really, really easy to do. We basically clipped the cables on and loaded the lift, and it was done. It took us like less than a day to hang this whole thing. Here we are, all finished, posing. Oddly, we also got a 2% for our commission, the same university, different building, same year, 2 different committees. But this one is for a mosaic. It's 11 feet tall by 23 feet long, and it's entitled Stepping Stones. It's another depiction of the college experience. It's a kind of a journey leading one to a desired career, like one step at a time. The orange, red, and yellow forms represent the many individual stepping stones that together pave the road to success. Graceful blue lines and green lines offer kind of an overview of the journey, like roads on a map. One of the guys who was involved in the commissioning of this, his name is Bob Savage. It's Savage and Associates donated a bunch of money to this whole building renovation, including the artwork. He arrived to pose with the artist and get pictures. We selected a thinner tessera for this installation, actually using stained glass sheets we cut into small pieces and glued onto a styrofoam backing material. This made for really lightweight pieces that we could easily attach to the drywall. So we literally just put these backing boards in, and then we'd screw our work onto those. It worked. It was very easy to do. One of our last large commissions was this interfaith chapel for a hospital outside of Chicago. It's 10 foot by 60 foot. Design had to re-weld, not only had to re-weld with only interior lights because there was no exterior light source whatsoever. That meant a return to clear textured glasses and mottled whites. The art glass separates the busy hospital entryway from the chapel, which is on the 2nd floor. The chapel is intended to be a tranquil space. So by using clear textures and white glasses and very light, quote unquote, materials by stained glass standards, the glass wall accomplishes the difficult task of separating the 2 architectural spaces while retaining a sense of airy openness. The glass also provides a delightful visual interest upon close viewing because you can get really close to these windows. Design theme is called Life Journey, kind of a spiritual anchor to the piece, while its graceful flowing lines provide a soothing artistic presence within the 2-story atrium space from the other side. We had 2 custom runs of glass made for us by Lamberts for this project. These mottled whites shown in their cylinder form before being flattened, and these whites and browns with streaks, whites with brown streaks. But this is a good time for me to finally explain how Lamberts blows a sheet of glass. The following 3-minute video was shot by me during the glass production of for this project. We want to have something to show clients exactly why it was worth spending this money for this kind of glass, because it is more expensive and difficult to make. I didn't think to try this with the sound, but let's hope that you can hear. If not, I'll narrate it. We'll see if you can hear it.
I'm not hearing anything, Bob.
Do you hear it?
No.
Oh, okay. Cindy says you don't hear the music. So I'll just tell you that they're showing that the process of making the glass. What they do is they blow. Well, here, so the glass has 3 ingredients: silica, lime, and soda. They will put it into a big kiln and heat it up to about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They start with a gatherer glass, and they go over to kind of a table, and they just start forming this glass. And this goes on for many, many steps, where they keep shaping and reshaping, get just the right shape on the end of the blowpipe. They go back, pick up more glass, eventually get enough glass to make a sheet of glass. So they just keep moving this glass in these forms, shaping it slowly. And they go into something here that's called a glory hole, which is a giant tube of flame. And they start blowing the shape it larger and larger, blowing the bubble. And eventually this master glass blower will put it in this tray and then blow it. And that gets the shape of the cylinder exactly right. There's actually little nubbies on that trough that keeps the glass from sticking to it. And then they take the bottom off by putting a piece of hot glass on it, and it basically makes it hot enough they can cut the bottom off. They take a rod to straighten it. Then they transfer it to this thing called the pliers, and they break it off the blowpipe. They reheat it again to make that part of the glass soft and supple, and they'll cut it a little bit more. And then they take another glass rod and they make it into a cylinder. Then some guy picks it up and they put it into an annealing oven. And the annealing oven will take the glass down from its molten temperature down to room temperature. Then someone's job is to take that cylinder and cut a score line down the middle of every one. We're talking about doing hundreds a day. And then they put it into another furnace that heats it back up slowly. And that break in the glass allows it to flatten. And a guy pokes at it for a while until he gets it roughly in shape. And he takes a wet block of wood and irons it flat. That gets all the bumps removed. And it goes through an annealer one more time and comes out as a sheet of glass. They look at every sheet of glass, make sure it's all perfect. Literally, somebody looks at every sheet before they pack it away. And then this guy's sole job is to put glass in the crates and nail them shut. He didn't speak any German. I kept trying to get him to do stuff. He didn't know what I was talking about. But that's how they make a sheet of glass. So anyway, we in that same job, we use hundreds of these little glue chip bevels. If you don't know what glue chipping is, that's where they take a glass and pour an animal hide glue on it. And as the glue dries, it fractures just the surface layer of the glass, making a pattern, like a frost on a fern or fern-like pattern. And we glued those on in a grid pattern here. And the only way we could get it all correct was to actually have it on a backing piece of paper behind it with the grid laid out so I could get the spot just right. And there it is, all done. So I end this retrospective with one final commission. This is a sanctuary window for the First Lutheran Church in Lorain, Ohio. It's 8 feet wide by 18 feet tall. They wanted a piece that inspired their congregation and to broadcast their faith to the surrounding community. It's an unfurling circle that represents both the nurturing and outreach. The opak glasses also eliminated the harsh southern exposure. The blue glasses are a nod to nearby Lake Erie, but also suggest baptism and healing. Design flows joyfully upward, imparting a sense of transformation and growth. The white border glass is a cupping shape, suggesting a chalice, or God's holding us in the palm of his hand. Once more, Cindy used the beauty of opaks and opals to create a stunning color palette. In 2021, when we did this, we're actually thinking about retiring in a couple of years, sometime in 2024 or 2025, and something happened and moved up that timeline. August 8th, 2021, I had a heart attack. In my mind, it was a minor affair. I walked into the ER with chest pains, but nothing debilitating like they depict in the movies. I thought it was heartburn. Turned out that one of my arteries was 95% blocked, and I had a stent put in to open it back up. In the months that followed, I lost 45 pounds and started a regular workout with a trainer 3 days a week, and I got into the habit of walking 2 to 4 miles every day. I feel better than ever. Cindy and I decided it was time to move on to the next phase in our life. We sold our entire glass inventory to a studio in Waco, Texas. We also sold all our tools and equipment, moving out of the custom-built studio we created in 2008. Our inventory fit into 26 crates. It totaled over 6,000 square feet 9,000 pounds of glass. That's from 40 years of work, mostly leftover glass from projects, because we always bought more than we thought we needed. We packed it all into a 32-foot Penske truck. I drove 15 miles down to its new home in Texas. At the buyer's studio complex, our glass filled up the entirety of one of their buildings. They'd always wanted to try Lamberts, opals, and opaks, and we had one of the largest inventories in the United States. With our leftovers from 40 years of glass productions, they inherited a great range of colors for their own exploration in stained glass design. As for Cindy and myself, we immediately headed west for a month of camping after dropping off the glass. This summer, we're traveling to the British Isles for 4 to 6 months of camping along the coastline of Ireland, Scotland, and England. Do we miss the work? Sometimes, but not really, not all that much. We had a very rewarding career, helping to bring beauty and inspiration to so many. Now we have our first grandchild on the way, another daughter getting married soon, and a bunch of newly retired friends ready to join us exploring the great out of doors. Lots to look forward to. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Bob. I am so impressed by this whole lifetime of work and taking the house that it looked like it looked when you first bought it to what it looks like now. I mean, that's amazing. Yep. And I really enjoyed learning how glass is made. I had no idea that it was blown to make a flat sheet. So yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah, I wish the audio had worked, because I had a friend of mine who's a professional voiceover guy. So it's really well done. It's a lot better than I did trying to get it on the fly. But it's on our website. If you ever go to our website, there's actually a longer version that goes into more detail if you're really into that kind of thing.
Yeah, very cool. At this point, we welcome comments from anyone. Just unmute yourself to ask a question. You can raise your hand if you want, or just start talking. And
actually, I have a couple comments.
Okay.
With the abstract interpretive design, what I was after was creating work that would provide a sense of joy for the viewer and to lend beauty to the space without knowing the thoughts behind it. But once you understood the meaning behind it, it was like, oh, that is so cool. I can see that. And it just offers a new level of understanding, but it's not necessary to appreciate the work from just an artistic perspective. And then one other thing, Bob, I don't know if you can go back to your screen and pull up Old St. Mary's, their main sanctuary window. But it was funny. Bob, can you hear me? Can you pull that up? It doesn't look like you're trying. Okay, so anyway, I went into early design meetings with, the patron and the church representatives and the architects, and the priest said, this window faces south, and we are going to have a severe glare through that upper window. And the architect says, oh, no problem. I'll just put in a glass that only allows 17% of the light to come through. It'll be fine. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. You're still going to have a hot spot. So the tinted glass went in, and the priest called me up and said, oh my gosh, we still have a problem. And so he said, can you solve the problem? And I said, yeah, I can. And so the glass at the top that is just the light blue is opak, because as Bob mentioned, opak stops the glare. And what's neat about opak is not only does it temper harsh light, but it also gathers low light. So the colors remain really vibrant, even during the winter on gloomy days, and early morning and evening when the light is minimal. So, from a consultant perspective, it's really important to know that opak glass is a tool that you can use to not only block a view completely, but also to soften harsh light. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, questions, comments, Peggy?
Thank you. I mean, it's just fascinating to watch the progression across a whole career, and it's beautiful work. And you just mentioned what my question is, I mean, alluded to what my question is, and that is working with the church or so could you talk a little bit about your process and how you go from just initial discussions all the way up through the final installation?
So I would have a design meeting. Well, I guess it really starts by the church interviewing a number of different artists because we all have different styles, and a certain style will be right for them and others aren't. So if I'm the chosen artist, then I entered into a design meeting and I showed them pictures of things that I had done in the past. I showed them glass samples. We talked about what they were hoping to achieve from a practical perspective. In other words, what is the view beyond the windows? What is the lighting? And then symbolically, what they were interested in achieving. Did they want the windows simply to be a celebration of beauty, or did they want a thought woven within? And as I had them go through things that I had done in the past, I said, tell me what you like about this and what you don't like. For instance, I could be showing them pictures of a stained glass window that used antique, or what we call cathedral glass, which is colored glass that you can see through. And they might say, well, we like this green, but we don't like the way that it shades into brown. And that tells me what appeals to them and doesn't appeal, but I know that the brown is there because there's a tree outside the window. And when you're actually looking at the window and you're moving past it, the eye forgives that. The eye sees only the green. But by them telling me, looking at the picture where the colors are all flattened, I get a sense of what they like and what they don't. So if they like something like that, then I know that I might have Lamberts make a glass like with that glass sculpture where it was blues, teals going into orange golden shades. So I would take copious notes, and I've always approached a design from the philosophy that the design is not mine, it's theirs. It may flow through me, but it's theirs, and it needs to serve their purpose and their goals. And then I would always take a picture of the committee and put it up on my wall along with all of my notes, because it allowed me to stay connected with them as a body of people. And then I would start designing, and Bob would upload my designs to a private web page, and we would send out an email saying, okay, you can look at the progress thus far, and you can make comments and, guide me if you want to, because that way there won't be any surprises when I actually show them the final design. And when I did show them the final design, I took glasses with me, showed them the colors that I would be using and the types of glasses. And then as we started building the windows, Bob would take my drawing and put it up on the finished drawing up on that hidden website. And then as each panel was completed, we would take a picture of it and then superimpose it over the drawing. So the church could see it coming together, piece by piece. So that was always kind of exciting for them to get those updates. Anyway, that was kind of the process.
Ken.
Yeah, wonderful to see all that work. Your creative lives flashing before our eyes here. It was great. And I'm remembering working with you at St. Columban there in Loveland many months ago. And what struck me seeing those images again was the way, if I remember correctly, there was some controversy because that new church was built in a wooded area, and they didn't want to lose a lot of trees, and they loved their site. It was a beautiful site. And what I recognized was the coming together, the way you brought in the design, you brought the dynamic liturgy space, you know, the dynamics of all of that, and it touched at those windows with their beautiful site and those trees, which I remember, and I hadn't thought of that in years, but it was just a genius move to kind of bring those two realities together in that plane of glass. And I was just wondering if that's anything that you had, like if you've done that other times, or were there other times where the site and the surroundings impacted the design as much as it did there?
Well, certainly with that one, they talked so much about trees, and then the conversation diverged into qualities of trees that are also qualities of spiritual life. So that's how those two came together. But often the environment would influence it. I know the window, was it up in Lorain, Ohio, Bob, where they were right on Lake Erie, and they had such a connection with the lake. And so that's why, you know, Bob mentioned, you know, that the blue represented the lake also. So yeah, not always, but yes, sometimes. I will say that the site often dictated the type of glass, if there was going to be glare or not.
Bradley? Unmute yourself.
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, it's such a pleasure to be with you all and to meet Bob and Cindy. You guys are legends.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you know, I'm a stained glass artist, and I do mostly figurative work. By the way, when you go camping, no, not really. When you, I just.
Oh, we can talk about that for hours.
I have a comment because, you know, we do almost exclusively figurative work. And when I see your work, there's a fine line between inspiration and jealousy. And I don't know if I'm the only one that experiences that or not, but I just consider that my way of complimenting you the best way I know how.
Oh, thank you
That's
so
it.
much.
Beautiful work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
great-
Hey, by the way, we had that same kiln in the background. That got sold to the same studio who bought all our glass, was that big old kiln back there.
Yeah, no, we missed that sale by like a week.
Oh, oops.
Oh,
Yeah, we were looking for some Lamberts glass, and you know, we were said, well, you guys are out of our league. So anyway, yeah, it's a great kiln.
Yep, we liked it. It's gone.
Well, your work will be there forever.
Yep.
You know, so I guess that's why we do it.
Marilyn.
Well, I really appreciated the video on the process of making glass because, like you said, people have no idea how much work goes into making glass. And, you know, as other artists have presented, it's like they think that artists are rich, you know, and you're making all this money and you're charging a really high price for something, and they just don't have the knowledge of all the work that goes into something and appreciate the process. And the more that we as consultants can help them understand how much work they're paying for, besides the artistry, which is all of your education and your experience, just the more we can educate them on the process is really important for us. And it's important for us as consultants to know about this in order to present it. So thank you so much for that. And I did not realize that somebody's actually blowing something. I mean, I've seen other videos, but I didn't really realize that process. So thank you so much for sharing that.
If you really want to see the detailed process, go to our website. There's like a how-to section, how they blow a sheet of glass. And there's that 3-minute video, which I tried to show, in a 7-minute version, which has a little bit more detail, which you're welcome to, show clients and stuff. It doesn't, there's no copyright restrictions or anything on it. So feel free to educate if you want.
Thank
And
you.
I will
Cindy.
say that the video that we saw here, the 3-minute section video, was jerky. And the one on our website doesn't do that. It's fluid.
That's actually probably because of the way I'm linked up, because I had to do something funky with my computer to make this all work. That probably was
Okay.
what messed it up. So yeah, I didn't know what you saw, but it looks great on the website, and it's on YouTube also.
And
Hello,
what is the address?
KesslerStudios.com.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
hello, Kesslers. It's wonderful to see you again. It's Alice Manzi from upstate New York.
I saw the name.
I don't know how to put my face there. I see a gray something.
Oh, I wish you could.
How do I do that?
You need to point your camera toward yourself. It looks like your camera is on.
Oh,
Do you have a cover on it?
I see. I have a cover on it.
Oh,
There you are.
Cool. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so many years, and we used to have such a great time at all the reform conferences.
Oh
yeah, I remember.
It was so wonderful. And we had those morning meetings for the artists with David Philippart,
Yep.
and to have the artist meeting at 8:30 in the morning, I thought was always such a mistake.
I say so.
No, we managed. I have to show you that. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a picture of one of your pieces that I've had on my bulletin board ever since I met you.
It's blurry. You might have to get it
This is
closer.
House of the Church Ministries, Old St. Mary's, Michigan Avenue, Chicago.
Yep.
And it was one of my very favorite pieces of liturgical art that I had ever seen. Just absolutely mind-blowing. And your work is so beautiful. We worked together at the Franciscan Sisters of Chicago, downtown. And yes, the square footage of what you did there was so amazing. They had my St. Clair in bonded bronze there for a number of years. But it's great to see the two of you. It's wonderful to see all the work together. Oh my gosh, it's great. So terrific. Your sense of color and the work that you and Bob did together, so amazing. And we're all so lucky to have had you doing this for your entire creative lives. It's so wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to
It's
see.
interesting talking about that Chicago process, St. Clair,
Yes.
because the building was 55 stories high. Usually we would come into a project, maybe a union project, and the job would basically be done. And so we slip in, it's no problem with the unions, and we install our windows. But there they were finishing like one floor at a time. So for us to be on the 19th floor working, there were still union people in the building. And they said, you cannot touch your own stained glass windows unless you're a member of the union. So Bob had to join the Glaziers Union in Chicago. He had to travel up there for their initiating meetings and pay his dues.
Now, did that slow you down?
Not at all. It actually was just fine, because as it turned out, the only time it became an issue is they had the way they were doing the installations, they had the existing windows there already, and they put new frames on the inside. So I was putting the stained glass in with two guys who were working with me, but there were two younger guys who were ahead of me putting the frames in, because it was 89 feet long. So it took a while. And they must have said something, because at one point, one of the older guys with me said, do you have a card? And I said, absolutely. I pulled out my card and showed it to him, my union card. He goes over to this young guy, he goes, he's got a card. It's okay. Apparently they were thinking about having a stoppage.
Whoa.
Oh, boy.
Love that. I love that. Anyway,
just-
those days
I
were
just-
terrific.
I just built the
Well-
cost of the union into the price of the job. It didn't cost me anything.
And we found out, actually, we found out about that problem early enough on that Bob was able to go through the whole process of becoming a union member. And
Right. We never tried to hide it or disguise. I talked to the union rep from the very beginning, and he appreciated that I was contacting him instead of trying to sneak in. It all made it much more easier to do.
All
Very
right.
good, very good. Thank you so much.
changing the subject, Bradley, you mentioned, why do we do this? It's interesting. I always find that the most rewarding part is during the installation. And I know that a building really is held together because of the work that the architects do and the carpenters and, all of the different trades. But I'm the only one that gets the hugs and tears of joy.
Well, on that note, I think we need to end for today, but thank you so much. What a
You're welcome.
wonderful presentation.
Thank you for asking us to do this.
Thank you very much.
It's great. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
See you out west.